Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Okay, welcome to today's press conference. We will now turn to the Deputy Prime Minister to start things off.
Okay, thank you very much, Kat. Good morning et bon matin à tous. Pour vaincre la COVID-19 et remettre notre économie sur les rails, nous devons adopter une approche pan-canadienne. Nous devons faire tout ce qu'il faut pour soutenir les Canadiens qui ont besoin d'aide. Nous devons prendre les mesures nécessaires pour assurer la sécurité des gens. That is why today I introduced Bill C-25. If enacted by Parliament, this legislation will provide $7.2 billion in critical support to provinces, territories, municipalities, and First Nations communities across Canada. Of that sum, $4 billion will go to immediate healthcare needs. COVID-19 has placed extreme pressure on healthcare systems across the country. The pandemic is still here, and many parts of our country are facing the threat of a third wave right now. Canadians need help urgently. So, this money flowing through the Canada Health Transfer will help provide the life-saving procedures put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It will ensure that our healthcare system does not buckle under the continued strain of the pandemic, under the pressures of the third wave and new variants. We know that to fully revitalize Canada's economy, Canadians must be vaccinated. Vaccine campaigns are accelerating, and that is such a good thing. But we need to vaccinate even more Canadians, even more quickly. Thanks to plentiful and growing vaccine supply, that is something that Team Canada can get done together. So this legislation proposes a one-time payment of $1 billion to provinces and territories to reinforce and roll out vaccination programs. This builds on the $19 billion previously allotted to support provinces and territories through the Safe Restart Agreement last summer. Finally, we propose to invest $2.2 billion for municipalities and First Nations communities. This money will flow through the Federal Gas Tax Fund, which we are today proposing to rename the Canada Community Building Fund. Cities and towns are on the front line of the fight against COVID-19, and we will ensure that they can maintain and build the local infrastructure that Canadians depend on. Today is a down payment on investments that we will more fully outline in the federal budget next month. Even as we plan for the mid and long term, we also need to address the immediate and urgent needs that Canadians face today. The battle against COVID-19 isn't over, and it's happening right now. Pour conclure, je tiens à réitérer que la collaboration a été le fondement de la réponse pan-canadienne à cette pandémie et qu'elle continuera de l'être. C'est la collaboration qui nous permettra de stimuler la croissance et la création d'emplois et de jeter les bases d'une relance solide et d'un pays plus résilient. Je cède maintenant la parole à mon collègue Dominique Leblanc. Dominique.
Merci beaucoup, Christia. Good morning and good afternoon. Comme la vice-première ministre a dit, il n'y a pas de plus grande priorité pour le Canada en ce moment que de combattre et de vaincre la COVID-19. La COVID-19 a eu une incidence profonde sur la santé et la vie sociale et économique des Canadiens. We are not by any means out of the woods yet. We all must continue to follow local public health guidelines, but there is increasingly light at the end of the tunnel. The $7.2 billion that the Deputy Prime Minister just mentioned is another example of our effort in the essential fight against COVID-19. Our government has committed to Canadians that we would be there to support them through this pandemic. And this announcement today is another example of our ongoing commitment. And it's also an example of our commitment to working collaboratively in the Team Canada approach, working with provinces and territories all the time in our joint fight against COVID-19. I look forward to working with the provinces and territories as we get through this pandemic together. Et avec ça, Christia, je vous retourne la parole.
OK. Merci, Dominique. Et maintenant, je cède la parole à Catherine. Catherine, over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Christia. I just want to start by recognizing the historic decision by the Supreme Court today that found that climate change is real, man-made, and that the federal government can continue to ensure it isn't free to pollute anywhere in Canada. Beaucoup ont contribué dans les 5 dernières années à cette décision. Un merci particulier pour les jeunes autour du Canada et autour du monde qui savent que l'action sur les changements climatiques, ça concerne leur avenir et qui n'arrêtent jamais de faire pression pour actions plus ambitieuses. As the Deputy Prime Minister has said, we understand that the COVID-19 crisis is the greatest public health and economic crisis of our time. And we recognize the vital role that immediate investments in local infrastructure plays in addressing the needs of cities and towns, as well as Indigenous communities across our country. That's why I'm so pleased that the Government of Canada is taking decisive action to support communities across our country by moving forward to double this year's gas tax fund payments to become known as the Canada Community Building Fund. Nous apportons davantage de soutien aux communautés quand elles en ont le plus besoin. More funding for cities like the City of Toronto, which last year received over $166 million, the City of Charlottetown, which received $3.3 million, and the City of Yellowknife, which received $5.5 million from the fund. Doubling these amounts means more money for projects like broadband, better public transit, rec centers, and of course, this is about getting Canadians to work and restarting our economy. Ces investissements permettront aux Canadiens de travailler et aux collectivités de prospérer. Together, we're investing with cities and towns and Indigenous communities in thousands of projects across the country, creating good jobs and building cleaner and more inclusive communities. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la Vice-Première Ministre et les ministres. We will now take questions from journalists until 12:15 p.m. It'll be one question, one follow-up. On va commencer au téléphone. Operator?
Thank you. Merci. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. S'il vous plaît, appuyez sur étoile 1 maintenant pour poser une question. Once again, please press star 1 if you have a question. De nouveau, n'hésitez pas à appuyer sur étoile 1 pour toute question. Our first question, la première question, Greg Quinn, Market News International. À vous la parole. Please go ahead.
Hello. You've probably noticed that housing markets in a lot of unusual places across the country have been quite tight and prices have surged quite a bit. Do you feel that the government needs any regulations to prevent any kind of housing bubble or disruptions in housing markets?
I assume that's a question for me. This is Christia. And let me just say, we are, of course, watching housing markets across the country very, very closely and carefully. And we are very aware also of the challenges that many Canadians face, particularly young Canadians, in buying a home. So it's something we're looking at carefully.
Thank you, Minister. Secondly, if I may, we know a budget is coming now, and you've cited an IMF report that urged Canada not to withdraw policy support too early, but they also mentioned clear and credible communication about the path to normalcy and to make sure that changes in government programs increase the productivity of the economy. I wonder if you can talk about those 2 points. How do you plan to address those ideas the IMF has raised about being clear about the medium-term fiscal path and making sure that spending actually boosts the economy?
Thank you for the question. And I'm very pleased that we're now able to say that I will be presenting a budget to the House and to Canadians on April 19th. That budget will include detailed fiscal projections and a detailed accounting of the money that we have spent, as is usual in budgets. I'm not going to comment today on the content of the budget. That wouldn't be appropriate. But what we have said when we launched our pre-budget consultations is that this is going to be a budget that focuses on jobs and growth. This is going to be a budget about getting Canada and Canadians back to work, fulfilling the commitment in the speech from the throne to help support 1 million jobs and to help Canada heal the economic wounds of COVID-19. Thanks.
Operator, next question.
There are no further questions registered at this time. Nous n'avons plus de questions pour le moment.
Okay. Well, I think we'll say, Dom, Catherine, I think we'll say thank you very much to everyone who joined us. And à la prochaine. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Bye. Au revoir.
Merci, Christian. Okay.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.